once. That's why they want to do everything in one day, and the family is going along with them. So normally they don't come twice. So they want to fix it in one day because the person cannot afford the cost to come again, and that's how it did often.
The process of fabrication and the fitting is designed such a way that the one-time visit does the purpose and there is no further visits or rechecks.
In all developed countries, normally you have to come after a few months to redesign everything, to fit it again, but this is designed only for once.
Somebody who's a student? No?
What will happen when a growing child has changed what the process is? Because child is growing, so they have to change after 6 months or after this.
Yes, in that case, there is like, it is a long-lasting product. It has the written that is it is a long-lasting product. But if the fitting issues, the length issues, then they have to refabricate and refit, and they have to do the refit.
Yes, so follow-up is very much required for the growing child.
As I said, any student here? Okay, let me then ask a few questions. We have done a number of cases, you've met many NGOs. Give me examples of NGOs that are not social innovators. So many have come.
So the first thing.
Any names, just to understand that you
First
understand.
lecture that we had had,
Sorry?
the ITC.
The first lecture.
Yes, okay. Although Sasha is a social innovator because the way they design all their systems and whatever, the whole thing, because it, you see, innovation, we have to make you, this is not a class about that, but in your classes on technology management, you know that innovation is not invention, right? So this is innovation. On top of it, it's a social innovation. So social innovation need not only be in technology, it can be in many other ways, and Sasha does also in technology. But ultimately, it is of making contemporary and making live the crafts of old. Therefore, obviously, there has to be both design innovation as well as process innovation. But other things, other NGOs who are not necessarily social innovators. Touchwords, yes, it's not an innovator. Helpage is not an innovator. You need to make that distinction. They are not necessarily, they are doing wonderful work. Some of them are NGOs, some of them are social enterprises, but they are not necessarily social innovators. So it's time that we distinguish between a few phrases that we have been using. One is social or NGO entrepreneurs, that's one kind of thing. Another is social enterprises. Third is social innovators. There are three different things. For instance, give me an example of a social enterprise that is not a social entrepreneur.
Social enterprise now.
Social enterprise that is not a social entrepreneur. Yes, at the current level, possibly yes.
The organization of CINI is also it's working like not like an entrepreneur, it's working like an enterprise, social enterprise.
So I'm just saying, so now that we are coming across these various phrases, you need to make those distinctions in your mind. Also, please understand that all social entrepreneurs are not NGO entrepreneurs, like ITC is not. ITC is a social entrepreneur, but it's not an NGO entrepreneur. So we are talking of entrepreneurship in NGOs because that's one way of making the NGO, kind of live longer and have a more fulfilling existence. Now, what makes Jaipur food so unique? You already said a few things. But just, recapitulate.
The all-in-one service, like as I mentioned with the organization and the family thing, like before to the question, everything is included, so the person only has to afford the cost of transportation, and everything behind this is included by the organization. and so he does not afford any other cost.
So that's one. Second,
Another thing.
of course, it's hugely cheaper to any established technology.
Yeah.
That is, the ratio is mind-boggling. Then,
It is a registered society, it's not non-religious, very secular, so the innovation...
yeah, but remember, that has nothing to do with the registration of a society. A temple can also be a society. We discussed this in the last class. We need to make a society is a legal structure. It can be a club, it can be a temple, it can be a religious organization. It's the way you register it. Okay, registered society and trusts are different because, as I said in the last class, in registered society, you elect your governing body. There's an annual election process. There's an annual governing body meeting, annual general meeting. In the annual general meeting for the next year, you pass the audited accounts for the year, and the other function is you elect the next year's governing body. Whereas in a trust, the governing body remains the same usually from year to year. You understand? So, therefore, it has nothing to do whether it's religious or not religious. Yes, it's a registered society and it is non-religious. Yes.
But there was a point, like people were not having any evening officials going there because they did not have any time.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm just saying, we shouldn't confuse between the legal structure and whether it's secular or religious. They are two separate things. Then what is the next one?
Another main point is the suitability to the Indian life.
Yes.
Because we saw all the competitors with costs like 4,000 or 5,000, and we think, oh, the more cost, it means more quality and more perfect for the...
I'll add a little bit more. It's not only suitable for India, many developing countries.
Yeah.
That's why you have that list of 27 countries that you had at the end.
And it,
So all developing countries, including many in Africa or Cambodia that you were talking about, these are places where this type of product is eminently suited because money is scarce.
and also, but this is the reason why it's also not possible to adapt these to developed countries because of the
Absolutely.
adapted lifestyle.
Any other thing that's unique? There are two things in my mind. One is it addresses the psychology of the person, of the beneficiary. You've seen that. In many places, they're looking at the psychology of the individual. You mentioned it in your presentation. So it's not just a physical solution, like in a hospital. It's also psychological, that the psychology, the social context, the money factor, all this is taken into account. The next thing is that you talked about is the technology horizon. It's not limited to one organization. It's a whole ecosystem. So they are with IITs, with NIVs, with ISROs, with Stanford, with MIT. You have a whole ecosystem around it, which they are possible. The last and probably the most important thing, because I've seen Jaipur foot in a different way, unlike you, but it's the fact of an unusual collaboration. You started by saying that Ramchandra was an artisan. So it starts with a simple sculptor who has inherited certain skills from his family. It starts its basis as that, and it extends it to people who are working on sending rockets into space. So from an artisan to rocket science, it has integrated the whole spectrum. The other integration that has happened is that they have involved even somebody like D.R. Mehta. You must have seen his name. D.R. Mehta actually popularized Jaipur food to a great deal. I knew him personally because I used to be in corporate life when he was the chairman of SEBI. SEBI is the Securities and Exchange Board of India. He was the chairman. I've met Mr. Mehta several times in SEBI offices. And he had this huge obsession. You know, SEBI was a great thing. It was a new thing. It was trying, Indian markets were buoyant, and SEBI was regulating the Indian market. And every person Mr. Mehta met, all corporate people, at the end of the conversation, somewhere they wanted to please him, and he was very willing to talk to Jaipur food. So the popularity without advertising, without any kind of thing that Mr. Mehta gave, due to this unusual conjunction of SEBI being a new regulatory board, and the fact that Indian markets were just coming into their own, was huge. So, you know, there's also that element of financial markets. It is the right timing, it's the right kind of people. It's many people with noble intentions and many organizations with, very philanthropic intent coming together to keep on making it possible and keep on making it possible. What is the biggest threat to Jaipur food? Tell me that. It's a threat it shares with some other case studies we've done in this course. It's technology. Tomorrow, if there's so much research and materials happening, tomorrow, if there's any technology developed by the people you talked about, which brings the cost lower than Jaipur food, it's finished. This huge ecosystem is over. And that is a problem that's also shared with Arvind Eye Hospitals and Narayan. Even they are working just on volumes to be able to do certain things. If tomorrow that equation is upset, then this competitiveness, this difference in the, one person paying for three in, Arvind Eye Hospital, or, similar equations in Narayan will get upset. Technology can completely upset this balance. Okay? I'll stop here because we should be impatient to listen to a live social innovator sitting right here. And you'll see it in visuals. Thank you very much.
I want to give a little comments, my impression on your presentation. First of all, Jaipur food itself is a very unique and successful project, really. And personally, I felt a bit updated today hearing you, because being non-medical person, your research work was very good. And then with the contribution of Professor Mittal, it was very nice analysis. I think it is completed very well. Keep it up.